Men, and I use the term loosely. We're going to dive. We're going to dive deeply into subjects that are heavy. In fact, if you dove deeply with these things strapped to your waist, you probably would end up like those poor bastards on that submarine over by the Titanic. We're not going there though. We're going here. We're going to be looking at some flywheels. Well, actually, we're going to be looking at thrust washers. Over the years, I've had need to replace crankpin thrust washers. And when you look at the parts book, this is in fact the number that the parts book tells you that you need for a 900cc engine thrust washer. So you're rebuilding your motor. You go to your parts book. You order the number the parts book would have you believe is correct. You go to install it. And you find that the washer is way too small by several thousandths of an inch to fill the recess on the flywheel. There's just no way you could dimple or peen or center punch the flywheel and get enough metal to move to hold this thing solid. What to do? You sigh in deep exasperation, wondering, my God, what the fuck? At least that's what I do. Anyway, you do much poking around in the parts books, etc., and you find that there is a similar washer with a number that is the same except for it ends in 57A instead of 57. You order some of those and you find out that, yeah, the diameter fits now, but it's got this cutout, what is commonly called a fly cut. You know, for the life of me, I don't understand what the fly cut is for. It is just exactly, well, maybe a little bigger than, by a thousandth or two, than the diameter of the bearing cage. So if this were installed, the bearing cage could slide out by, 30 thousandths of an inch or whatever, which means that the both parts of the female bearing and the male bearing would be sliding back and forth on a crank pin by 30 thousandths on this one, 30 thousandths on the other one, an extra 60 thousandths of an inch. Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of using a thrust washer to set the end play of the connecting rods? Why would you set the end play of the connecting rods but not want to set the end play on the bearing cages to be the same? I don't know what this fly cut is for. It beats the hell out of me. I think, well, hell, let's just turn it over. But if you did run into a situation where the cages were end thrusting for one reason or another, how long would it take them to wear through and then punch out the other side into this recess? I just don't get it. I don't know why you would do this. Seemingly, the solution is in ordering thrust washers that aren't meant to fit in the engine, but they fit. If you get this part number, 23972-72, these will work. The only problem with these is they're a little too thin by about 5 thousandths of an inch. But there's salvation for that problem. And you might think the salvation lies with ordering the 23972-72A thrust washer. But no, when you order those, you get Flycut washers again. Fuck. The solution, I have every reason to believe, is going to be this washer right here, 23972-72B. Notice Harley has three variants of this. They've got the Dash 72, they've got the Dash 72A, which is the right diameter and the right thickness, but it's Flycut, or this one, which I don't have one of, but I've got one on order. I do believe this will be bronze. It'll be the right outside diameter, and it will be an optional thickness. You got a 62 thousandth washer here and a 67 thousandth washer here. So freeze the frame if you want, write down the numbers. Let's take a real quick look at the parts books and see what it tells you. This is my oldest Sportster book. It doesn't cover the oldest years, but it is my oldest book. And I believe it to be most accurate of the ones that I have, generally speaking. Item number 9, there's your thrust washer, and it calls out this number right here, 23972-57. It's the steel one. It'll work on some 900cc flywheels, but not all of them. Anyway, that's what the book says. This is my other Sportster book. Well, actually I got 3 or 4 of them probably, but this is the other one I go to most often. Covers the widest range of years, 54 through 78. That makes it a good thing and a bad thing. It covers a lot, but I'm not sure how correctly it covers them all. Harley did some weird shit over here. Here's the screws for the lock plates, okay, item number 1. Here's the thrust washer, item 12, and then they just kind of toss in 1A. And if you look, this A is a little bit different font than everything else. It was like they added it on just because. I mean, if you were going to have a variation of this number 12 washer, wouldn't it be number 12A instead of 1A? That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, you go over here and it says 1A is a 6506. And you notice that's a break from Harley's conventional way of numbering motor parts. You'll notice right above it is the screw 2660. They number a lot of their hardware with 4-digit numbers, and that's what you'll see a lot of. And what I like about some of the older books is 8011. It even tells you what size the piece of hardware is. Not always, but a lot of the time. So this comes in very handy. But I don't believe this number is correct. This number I don't believe is correct either, because really it should list that number that ends in dash 72 or 72A or 72B, which brings up a point. The alternate numbers aren't in the book. Unless you dig around a little bit, how do you even know they exist? And Harley does this with other things too, like shifter forks. They don't show all of the oversizes in all of the books. Some of the books they don't show any oversizes at all. But anyway, this is that parts book, what it shows. Okay, this is the last book I'm going to show you. Harley did some sneaky things. You'll notice here's the thrust washer. It's now item 1 and item 13. The screws for the lock tabs that used to be item number 1 are gone. So they've changed to using the number 1 for the thrust washers. And you'll notice on these engines there are no lock plates installed. The picture shows a lock plate right here, but there's no lock plate and those no screws. So 79 and later didn't use the lock plates or the screws. So let's look at what they're showing for parts on this thing. We've got a 6506 and it shows 79 and up over here. And then we've got number 13, which does show the 2392-72 up to early 79. So in the other book, where it showed that this was effective on, what did it say? It said 54 to 78. This book says it's late 79 and up. And that's why I think This is incorrect. Now, I have another flywheel set and some more washers. I believe this washer, which you can see is considerably different than the 23972-72, I believe this washer is the 6506, and I believe these are 79 and up, and any other flywheels that use the commonized tapers. And I think the commonized tapers started in 81. This is 6 degrees, and when they switched to the commonized tapers, everything went from 6 to 8, so Sportsters, Big Twins, all were the same. And I think these washers were for any motor that ended up using commonized tapers. So to kind of put this all in a nutshell, I measured all the thrust washers I had laying around here. And this is what I come up with. You know, pause the video, write them down if you want. I suspect there's probably a couple of thousandths of an inch of manufacturing variation. So if I bought 100 of these, I'd expect there to be variation in these dimensions by a couple of thous within that 100. So you got the 23972-57s, the -57As, Flycuts. I see no reason to ever use those. My partner up north, Siberian Cycle there, Gary at Siberian Cycle, made some phone calls, did some checking into it, and nobody he talked to, nor has anybody I talked to, ever found a reason to use these. Furthermore, in the hundreds of engines I've taken apart, I've never actually seen one of these in use. I don't know what the fuck you'd use them for. This one, I think, is the one you probably want to use, 23972-72. And of course, here are the dimensions. And of course, the last one over here, the -72A, this one is Flycut. I wouldn't use it, so I don't really think it matters. Now, to further make things a little more interesting, look at this. I got sitting around over here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 flywheels laying around here. And I didn't measure them all, but I measured 5 of them. The fucking outside diameter of the recesses is different on every one of the sons of bitches. The inside diameter is different. Not quite as much variation, but different on every one of them. And the depth of the recess is different on every one of them. 0.066 to 0.092, and all sizes in between. You know what? People say Harley had poor quality control. I don't know. That just seems crazy to me that there's that much difference in these things. I did some videos, or a video, about fitting connecting rod bearings, and I measured the diameter of the rod races with the bearing knocked out, and I ran into the same thing. Every one of those rods pretty much had a different diameter on the inside, and every bearing I measured had a different diameter on the outside. How can you build an engine or engines when you've got that much manufacturing variation from one to the next? Now, granted, these things have been, banging around here, and they're 50, 60 years old. So, who knows what happened to them over that lifespan. I don't know, but something's happening. Anyway, measure your recesses. Take a look at these sizes, and, pick whichever one works for you. Bear in mind, a bigger one could always be made smaller. I would make these things myself, but they're kind of hard to make. I mean, I'd have to get a big chunk of bronze. Face off the one end is no problem. And then, use a parting tool to cut it down to size. I would never be able to get it that flat with the parting tool, at least not at my level of skill. There's probably some people who could. If you go buy a pair of these things, they're 17, 18 bucks a pair. Well, that's dealer cost. The MSRP on them is like $32, $33. There's a reason they're that expensive. They're kind of hard to make. Although I suppose the company that makes them's got a big stamping machine and just punches them out. But for a guy to go make a couple of these, it would take some time. And just to show you what's available, this is of course V-Twin's website. This is the standard thickness washer, and over here you have the oversize washer. So 062, and this one should be 067. Two different V-Twin numbers here and here. But interestingly enough, they're stocked under the same OEM number, which is a little weird. But anyway, it is what it is. Like I say, not cheap. 33, 36 bucks for two washers. Wow. And here's the Eastern catalog and the Eastern numbers. The 72B only appears as an Eastern number, not as a Harley number. So maybe this wasn't even a Harley part number to begin with. Maybe they just decided they wanted to make a fatter one and gave it the 72B. I don't know. But anyway, that's what's out there. And with that, I am out of here. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye.